I read 19 books this past year, which is a lot of books. At least it is for me. So this year, I wanted to try and read even more. So I'm setting myself the goal of reading 25 books this year. Am I behind on that goal? Maybe? Yeah. No, I definitely am. But that doesn't really matter because goal or no goal, the point is that you're having fun with what you're reading. And last year, I had a lot of fun. And really, at the end of the day, that's what I want this year. Honestly, my biggest goal, if I have any, is to try to actually finish all of the series that I started last year. All of which were really good to read, but it's kind of hard to stay in the zone with a series when you're jumping around a lot. And honestly, that's what I did. So first and foremost, my goal this year is to try and not do that so much. I might use a smaller book as kind of a palate cleanser as I go, but for the most part, I want to try to read these big series back to back. So with that in mind, let's start there. I already read The Hunger of the Gods, so now I'm moving on to The Fury of the Gods. If you don't know what this series is, it's a Viking-inspired fantasy epic that takes place in a world where the gods have died. The gods are dead, but the world is full of their children, each of whom has the ability to turn into like a quasi version of them. For example, the wolf god Ulfrir had a bunch of children called Ulfrithnar, something like that, and they can kind of turn into wolfy-looking people, and they have wolfish powers when they do. Similarly, the bear god Berser has his children. You might be thinking that they're berserkers, and guess what? You would be right. Meanwhile, there are also creatures called Vessen, who turns out are actually the children, in a way, of the dragon god, Likrifa. Now, the series follows a few different characters, and one character in particular, Orca, who in the first book, I honestly wasn't that big a fan of. In the second book, though, major fan. She's such a great character. Really badass. And you follow them each on their own journey of kind of self-discovery, revenge, and just finding out more about the world. It's a really cool book. Not super fast-paced, so if you're into more fast-paced stuff, you might want to steer away. But either way, something that I recommend. And besides all of that, the action, which there's a lot of it, is so good. That's where I'm at right now. But what am I going to next after I finish The Fury of the Gods? Right now I'm thinking of doing a palate cleanser with The Girl in Red. This book, from what I've seen, the cover and then reading the back, it's kind of a post-apocalyptic dystopian take on the story of Little Red Riding Hood. I did start reading the first few pages, and honestly, of all of the books that I read this past year, and even the one that I have read this year, this has probably some of the best writing that I have seen. It's nice and short. This is really why I want to use it as a palate cleanser sort of book. Anyways, after we read that one, we're gonna kind of jump away from fantasy and into sci-fi. And with that in mind, I'm going to go to Dark Age by Pierce Brown, book 6 in the Red Rising series. If you've been on BookTube or Book Talk, you probably already know what Red Rising is. It's a sci-fi series set in an indistinct time in the future, where humanity has kind of been put into this caste system of colors. And our main character, Darrow, starts as a red at the very bottom and leads a rebellion to overthrow all the way up to the top, who are the Golds. The first 3 books have kind of a YA feel to them. Iron Gold, book number 4, is very good. Iron Gold is kind of where Pierce Brown starts to grow up with his writing. Each book does improve as it goes, and by book 4 you can really tell that he's kind of found his narrative voice. And so with number 5 and with number 6, Lightbringer, I'm excited to see where he decides to take that. Alright, despite hearing that Lightbringer is very heavy and has quite the ending, I'm not expecting to need too much of a palate cleanser after finishing that one, especially when I consider what I'm going to next, which is book number 2 in the Black Sun trilogy, Fevered Star. The Black Sun trilogy is this sort of Native American, Mesoamerica-inspired fantasy world with this really beautiful writing and just this feeling of capital E epic that a lot of books fail to capture these days. There's this sense that the world that you're diving into when you read it is so much bigger and the events so much deeper than you can possibly fathom. And because of that, it was easily one of my favorite books from last year. The writing isn't very slow though. It's a fairly I would think, fast-paced story. And with that in mind, I don't think I'm going to need, anything to get me into the mood with it, because it's going to be really easy to kind of slide in and, see what's happening again. And following up that one, I'm going to jump into the final book in that trilogy, Mirrored Heavens. Mirrored Heavens will mostly bring me up to speed with where I want to be with the series that I'm reading, except for the Foundry Side series, which we'll get to in a little bit, because there's no book 3 for that, so I don't really feel bad about cutting it into, just random books nearly as much. But following Mirrored Heavens, we're going to completely shift genres, and instead go to something that I've wanted to read for a long time now. Les Mis by Hugo Weaving. Look at this beefy boy. I expect that this book will take me ages to read. It honestly might completely throw me off of my goal for 25, but if it does, I am okay with that. I mean, this book is over 1,200 pages. It's huge, but I'm so excited to read it. I love the musical. My dad loved the musical. I know he read this book and he loved it. I am looking forward to joining him in having read this. Alright, so following Les Mis, you've got to have a palate cleanser, right? Initially when I wrote my list, I was thinking, A Conjuring of Light. That's good. But here's the thing. This book isn't small either. It's not huge by any means, especially compared to what we just read, but it's over 600 pages. And by this point, I'll have read a lot of that, so I'm going to need something a little bit smaller. So what are we thinking after Les Mis? Well, probably Nettle and Bone by T. Kingfisher, or Thornhedge, also by T. Kingfisher. I started reading T. Kingfisher's books last year, and she does such a good job at kind of retelling these classic stories and making them her own with such witty dialogue and fun characters. They're just really fun books to read, and none of them are very big. They're nice, short, simple, easy to digest. So once we get through that hefty boy that is Les Mis, we'll probably go to T. Kingfisher before we finally dive into the final book in A Darker Shade of Magic, A Conjuring of Light. So what have we got after A Conjuring of Light then? Well, another book from last year that I'm really far behind the times on, and by the time I get around to it, its sequel may have come out. But you know what? I am okay with that. And that book is The Will of the Many. I have heard so many good things about The Will of the Many. It's a Roman-inspired fantasy, and the story honestly kind of sounds like it might be similar-ish to Red Rising, but people say it is so good, and I'm really excited for that to see, what happens with it. All right, so what have we got after The Will of the Many? Well, we've got the sequel to Foundry Side, Shorefall. This book, again, really looking forward to it. Not a lot to say about it. We're going to kind of do these next ones rapid fire to get through the list, because we're maybe halfway in it. Following Shorefall, History of Ireland. I have Irish ancestry, and I've always been interested in learning more about it, and so this is where I'm going to start doing that. Try to dive in and see what I can learn about the country that some of my family came from. From there, we're going to shift around again. We're going to jump back to sci-fi with Hyperion. I hear that this is a classic. I don't know a lot about it. That's okay with me. I sometimes really enjoy going into books as blind as possible. So we'll see where it goes. Following up Hyperion, I'll have Stephen King's Fairy Tale. It'll honestly be the first Stephen King book I read, which hopefully isn't a mistake. I know he's written so many things, and people probably have preferred reading orders for what you should start with, but this is the one that I chose first. I'm interested to see where it goes. From there, we have another sequel to a book I listened to on Audible years ago now during the pandemic, A Desolation called Peace. This sci-fi world that this came up with is honestly one of the, I'd say, more unique ones, but I'm not actually that sci-fi literate, as you might say. But the first one, A Memory Called Empire, won the Hugo Award, and this one too won the Hugo Award. To me, that's a big deal. And the first book definitely deserved it, so I'm hoping to see that this one does too. Beyond that, seeing a book handle politics in a sci-fi setting without needing much violence, much in the way of action, I don't feel like you see that happen very much. And I'm honestly, it's refreshing when you do. So I'm excited to dive back into a book where you can see that happen more. All right, from here we're shifting to the horror genre, which I started to get into this past year. I first read for Halloween Gary Hendricks' The Final Girl Support Group, which was really good. It was a fun take on a classic horror movie trope. And so I'm excited to see another book of his. How to Sell a Haunted House. This book, I am going into this book purely off of the author's name at this point. I don't know a lot about it, but Gary Hendricks didn't disappoint me the first time around, so I'm hoping he won't a second time. This next one is another one that a lot of people talked about this year, Between Two Fires. The only thing I know about this book is what people have said, which is it's kind of medieval The Last of Us, sort of. Again, it's apparently a bit of a horror book, a horror fantasy, sort of historical fiction. I'm intrigued by that entire premise to see what can happen. After Between Two Fires, we have The Poppy War. Again, starting yet another series, but hopefully by this time I will have finished or caught up on most of the other ones I'm reading, so I'll be glad to start another one. This trilogy honestly makes me so nervous because I like dark stuff, but I hear people say that this series gets so grimdark. I don't know if I'll be able to handle that, but I'm going to try. Babel was such a good read, and I love what R.F. Kuang does with her themes and her stories, so I cannot wait to see what she has in store for me in this book. All right, we're into the home stretch. 6 more books for the year. The Fall of Gondolin. I am a massive Tolkien fan, but beyond the Silmarillion, I haven't read much of the stuff that his son Christopher Tolkien put together. I have a few of them. I've got this, I've got the Fall of Numenor, and the top of the bookshelf, I have 3 more. The Lost Road, The Shaping of Middle-earth, The Lays of Beleriand. So starting with The Fall of Gondolin, which has always intrigued me as a story. After The Fall of Gondolin, we have a dive once more into nonfiction with Emperor of Rome by Mary Beard. I read her book SPQR years ago when that came out and really enjoyed it. And so Rome, honestly, even when I was a kid, it has always held kind of a special place in my heart. And I like her take on looking at Roman history through the eyes of the average person rather than just the political and military history. Seeing that happen with a book called Emperor of Rome and how the emperors were kind of portrayed or viewed from the lens of the people around them and the people under them is, what can I say? It's going to be fun. From there, we're going to stay in nonfiction for a hot minute and read Children of Ash and Elm. Once again, a book kind of inspired by my history. So learning about the Vikings and their history is something, again, that's always kind of intriguing. I want to know more about who my ancestors were or what life was like in parts of the world, parts of Europe at least, that I have not studied before. And this is kind of me slowly branching out into other places. All right, so where do we go from there? We have 3 books left. We've got Children of Time. Apparently, Adrian Tchaikovsky is a really good sci-fi author with really inventive stories. And literally every time I have walked into Barnes & Noble, I look at this book. And finally last year I was like, you should buy it. You should buy it and see what it's about. You know, you might like it. So I did, but there's so many books to read. And you can only do so much, right? Another one, this has been sitting on my shelf for ages, Velocity Weapon by Megan O'Keefe. She is another author that you hear about who is apparently really, really good. And she's written a lot of stuff. I actually have a few by her. One other one by her on my shelf. I haven't read that one either, but I'm excited to read both of these books. They are my goal this year, is these books that I've looked at for ages. And finally, rounding out the year, I'm hoping that by the time I get to this book, it will be December, and that I do not have other books in front of it, because it feels like a winter book. And yeah, it's February, and there's still snow on the ground, and it's winter, but nothing screams winter like December, right? So, Frederick Bachman's Beartown. A lot of people talked about this past year. A lot of people said it was really good. I was not one of those people. Hopefully this next year, I will be one of those people. All right, and that is everything that I plan on reading this next year. Or at least that I'm hoping to read this next year. Most of this list is not hard set, even being put up here for you guys. The first, 6 definitely are, but after that, the order could change. I could throw some out and replace them. It's gonna kind of be a free-for-all. I just know for sure that I want to finish those series that I showed you guys at the beginning. But I am always open to new books, and if you guys know books that you think would be good, then please let me know in the comments down below. If you found this video helpful in finding a book that you think might sound intriguing, like, subscribe, comment, all of the things. My name is Kyle. I like to talk about books, and if that's something that interests you, then subscribe.